Now, Tourism Minister Mmamoloko Kubayi-Ngubane says you will be able to go to a restaurant from Monday, but there will be strict rules in place to avoid spreading COVID-19. They include turning patrons away if they're not wearing masks. Well, for more on this, I'm joined by ENCA's political editor, Voyo Mvoko. Good evening, Voyo. Thank you so much for joining us. This was quite a broad-ranging briefing by the Tourism Minister. It's not just restaurants, it's casinos, it's hotels. There's a lot that's going to be opening up from Monday. Give us the scope.
Indeed, there's quite a lot that they're going to allow for, but there's also a lot that they are not allowing for yet. But with regard to restaurants, we all have to get used to it. It's the new normal. Your restaurant experience is not going to be the same, emphasizing that you'll have to wear your mask. You'll have to sanitize, wash your hands, social distance. So, I mean, restaurants will have to come in at half their capacity, because we're talking like 50% full or empty, depending how you look at it.
I was quite pleased the minister did at least say, well, you can take your mask off to eat and drink, because otherwise I just had these mind-boggling visions.
You can do that, but put it back on.
Yeah,
you know, as soon as you're done, well, I'm not sure about as well, you're done chewing or done eating.
Yeah, exactly.
I guess I suppose I'm being facetious here. But, I mean, the protocols and regulations you have to follow are quite strict. Distance has to be maintained. That goes for staff, but also for patrons.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, for those who prefer their meals with a glass of wine or a glass of something, that's not allowed yet.
And that is a crucial part of it, really, because a lot of people enjoy a glass of wine with their meal. It's part of the ambience, it's part of the mood, it's part of the relaxation, but that's an absolute no-go.
It's an absolute no-no, and of course she did sort of defer on that one. Say, well, it's not my area of work. I only deal with tourism. Trade and industry would have to deal with that. But the rules as they stand is that you can't drink alcohol at a restaurant. But she hopes that as more and more of these regulations get relaxed, I mean, those opportunities may come. Because she did say that industry has actually raised a number of issues around costs, for example, of complying with the regulations, but also things like alcohol, which they say, you know, sort of help the business. I mean, a restaurant business, you know, won't make as much money as it does without alcohol. So she said on both alcohol and on issues like, for example, having to follow to ensure that people use one plate or something, and you can't use it again. Those things will increase the cost of running the business. They are very much aware or alive to those issues. But as she put it, or she kept on saying, one step at a time.
Yeah, look, it is a very difficult process and it's all new to us, so it's all about getting to grips with how it's going to look and feel. Conferences, 50 people, no more than 50 people allowed through the doors, and yet, for example, with casinos, they allowed 50% capacity. Do you think some people would say that's a little unfair?
A lot of people will say that, as has been the case, I think, with every sector that is open. People have been able to find loopholes, and in certain instances, I mean, the government has been able to say, okay, let's look at this again. But that issue was raised. There again, people were involved in conferencing, saying, you know, the meals, you know, how are we going to...
No buffets.
Yes, no buffets.
Absolutely no buffets.
You can't have those big jugs of water and glasses distributed. So I can only assume that the only way out is that everyone will have to drink bottled water.
And obviously it's good news, you know, for people who rely on the tourism sector, who rely on restaurants to make their living. But is it really enough to kickstart the industry? Movement is still so restricted. There are so many regulations that actually curtail that ease that we tend to associate with tourism.
I think, as with every other industry, to kickstart, yes. I mean, this is a welcome move. But whether it will sustain their livelihoods, you know, the way it used to, I think there are no prizes for guessing what my answer would be to that. But again, every time, you know, those kinds of questions came up, the minister kept on saying, look, this is only the beginning. And we wouldn't be here were it not for the push and sane people from the industry actually putting suggestions on the table and saying this is what we will willingly submit to just open. It says it's because of that the industry is able to open and people can earn a living. So it will be up to them again to keep pushing to make sure that more and more avenues are open. But that will happen with people ensuring that there is compliance, and opening up won't mean that you actually we're allowing the pandemic to flourish.
All about that risk adjustment. Thank you very much, Mmamoloko, our political editor.